Alright, got my hair cut. We're gonna do a Q&A video today. I had a capture card review originally in the works for today, and a lot of stuff went wrong with it. So they're sending me a new one before I go and make an angry video. I want to give them a fair shot. I believe something is actually wrong with my unit. If I still recreate the problems, then it's not going to be a fun review. But I asked you guys to submit questions over on the channel. This light is not getting enough of my shadow here. I can't see now. I have a light off screen there. It's supposed to fill out my face. I don't know what I'm doing. I asked you guys over on the community tab of the channel to submit questions for a Q&A. And then future Q&A videos, the questions will take priority from our Discord server. It's a group chat service, kind of like Slack or old Instant Messenger group tools, things like that. We have a Discord link. It's eposvox.com/discord. I had an issue where the invite link kept going to the wrong room. Finally fixed that. Come join, hang out with us. There's a specific chat room for Q&A questions, which I will then take note of and integrate in the future videos. For this one, we are addressing your questions from the community tab. I just have them in a doc here on the on my phone here. We're just gonna go through. I got a couple questions regarding motivation and specifically how I keep my drive going in terms of immense stress, frustration, or general lack of motivation. And then some about like the most difficult time in my career, what I thought was my greatest success or greatest failure, things like that. In terms of how I keep going in terms of immense stress, frustration, or lack of motivation, the big thing is to keep your perspective intact, to actually have like high tier goals, and to take breaks when you need it. Self-care is extremely important. The whole entrepreneur, solopreneur, Gary Vee style of success talks and motivational talks and stuff is very toxic. I subscribe to most of those myself. Like, I'm a huge fan of Gary Vee. I'm a huge fan of the no bullcrap, hard truths kind of thing. But the whole, if you aren't spending every waking second working your hands to the bone, then you don't deserve success mentality, I am not okay with. If you are not feeling capable of doing something, you need to take a break or you will get burnt out. And having 1 or 2 days in a week where you just work at like half speed or half efficiency or just half at all, or a day in a week where you just take a full day off or you take weekends off and then still do work the rest of the time is nowhere near as big of a loss as a full-on depressed rut that you can get in when you get burnt out. And that is something I very much focus on. I don't have a whole lot of time to play video games anymore, but I make sure when I am feeling low energy or when I am not capable of working, I take time to do the things I enjoy. I binge watch YouTube content. I am a content creator, and unlike a lot of them, I actually watch a crap load of YouTube content. I used to comment a lot on videos and used to get a lot of replies of, "Oh, you're everywhere," and I got a little annoying. It's because I had the verified check mark. I watch a lot of content. I binge watch shows. There's some shows just for comfort that I've watched like 50 times. Like, I've watched through all of House a few times. I've watched through all of Dexter like 10 times. Things like that. Game of Thrones quite a few times. And I've recently built in my new apartment a dedicated retro game room, which both appeals to me in terms of things that I enjoy for fun, but I also get to spin off into additional content. So if you're just not enjoying the content you're making, it's time to pivot a bit and reconsider the content strategy that you're approaching and find what you truly enjoy. I've always struggled. I was actually talking to my fiance about this earlier in the week. I always struggle to answer like questions about what my motivations actually are, because I haven't struggled with pure motivation in a long time. I've struggled with like direct inspiration. I've struggled with just not wanting to do stuff. I've had some health issues that I'm finally going to the doctor on, actually the day you're seeing this, to hopefully start addressing, because they're getting pretty major, which have kept me very low energy the past couple years. So I spend a lot of time being not very productive compared to how I used to be. But this is what I do. This is what I care about. This is what I go like all in on. This is all I've done for the past like 5 years. Actually, 3 full time. And I enjoy it. I live and breathe it. I love playing with the new toys, the new tech, the new gadgets. I love figuring things out. I love the troubleshooting aspect. That's the generation of computing I grew up in. And I love showing it to other people and teaching you how to use it. And I love improving my craft. I love creating and building things. And this is a way that I get to do it. And it also involves the things I love. Video, art, creation, gaming, tech, get to all blended together. And there's some things that I'm just good at that I get to indulge in. In terms of what the most difficult time in my YouTube career is, There's two that I can think of. The most actual difficult is probably around late 2013 all through 2014. I doubt anyone is still around from that point in time, but if you are a legend. My YouTube channel actually started as a gaming channel. That's how I got my start, was gameplay stuff. I just got a text or something. I'm supposed to leave to go pick my fiance up from work. I'll be back.
3 hours later.
And we're back. I'm an idiot. I was doing some benchmarking and then jumped over to this, didn't pay any attention to what time it was. Alright, so, yeah, I started as a gameplay channel, and eventually, like, I did well for a small growing gameplay channel for a few years. I never really niched into a specific game. I didn't want to do that. I tried that, hated it, and so I inevitably had slow growth as a variety channel. And then I was really trying to figure out what my full-time, like, concept would be, and I wound up building out when I was still living with my parents. So in my bedroom with my parents, I wound up building out this whole co-op gaming setup for my fiance, at the time my girlfriend, and I, to record videos and make co-op videos. And that was some of the most enjoyable gaming content I ever made. It was co-op Let's Plays, goofy first impressions of videos, things like that. And it was very challenging as a format to actually produce, and I had a lot of fun with it. But the views plummeted, the views weren't doing so great, and had I stuck with it, it was probably something I could market, and maybe we'll return to it one day, although that's mostly gone the way of streaming. But that was a big struggle, and so throughout 2013 and some of 2014, I had this weird existential crisis of going back and forth, trying to figure out where my success was going to come from, what I was actually going to focus on or do, and so that was probably the most difficult time. At the same time, pretty much the middle chunk of 2016 was just really, honestly, crap content in my opinion from me. I covered a lot of really interesting topics and really interesting approaches, and my focus was trying to figure out a more efficient, recording setup, because I was using my T3i at the time. I had trouble keeping it lit well and things like that, and so I focused on this really efficient setup, but the videos looked kind of bad, and some of them were rushed, and it wasn't great, and so that time wasn't all that great either. How do you keep producing content to avoid burnout as you've been on YouTube? There's been time, basically what I've explained. My cat is trying to climb into the window next to me now. I mean, the thing is I can't show it all for obvious reasons, but I have a spreadsheet that I've always used just random lists in Google Keep, Notepad, sticky note, notebooks. I have notebooks and notebooks full of ideas and details from videos and things like that. Will you stop, kitty? And I've recently finally gotten more organized and compiled it all into a spreadsheet, and I have multiple tabs with hundreds and hundreds of video ideas, topics, and concepts that I would like to cover, go more in depth on, do expansion videos on, and things like that. So in terms of how do you keep making content, it has always been my belief that if you truly find what you're actually passionate about and what you wake up day in and day out wanting to do, you're never going to run out of ideas, because there's a never-ending list of topics about a subject you care that deeply about. Your only limitation will be your physical ability to keep producing the content, to produce it fast enough or more efficient enough, and the time spent in order to be able to produce it better. And so, to me, if you are struggling to have ideas or come up with things to work on, you're not quite in the right position just yet. And that's very common of smaller YouTubers, of those who are just starting out, who are just kind of doing the videos I want to make, which means you haven't really figured out what you actually want to make, ironically. But once you get to that point, honestly, even during burnout, you have things you want to do. You just may not have the energy to physically do it. My biggest success and failure in my YouTube career, I honestly don't know what I'd consider my biggest failure. There have been a couple brands I've worked with where I didn't feel like I delivered properly. Actually, ironically. So you all know that which some of you responded hilariously negative to, which is funny since it's been a long-running thing and people have sticks up their butts, but I have a long-running relationship over the past couple years with Intel. I do sponsored Intel videos. Well, I actually have been completely unable to even get review samples from AMD for the past 6 years. When I was just starting out in 2012. So when I was still doing gaming videos but just starting to dip my toes into tech, I sent out more review requests, And one of the very first actual like tech-related review samples I got was one of the early APUs. I think it was from the Trinity series, I want to say, and a motherboard from AMD. They sent it out for review. And my goal was to make a follow-up video from the video that I made, but the video I made was super basic. I like explained what an APU is, I covered the specs, I showed it physically being installed to a motherboard. I had no clue what I was doing in terms of tech content whatsoever. It was like one of my first camera-produced tech videos. It was bad. Honestly though, if you go back and look at Linus's unboxing, although that was probably an NCIX sample and not something he had an obligation to AMD to make, it wasn't much better. But my goal was to do more benchmarks and things like that, and I just ran into trouble with it. My production PC died at the time, things like that. I never followed up. I sent that singular video, and actually I had something wrong. So actually it probably wasn't a Trinity APU, because I think I had it wrong in the video which line of APU was. So I'd immediately, like it had like 2 views, it had just made it up, or put it up, and as I was sending the email I realized it was wrong. Took down the video, re-uploaded it, and had to send them a second link. I've never heard back from AMD since. I never got a reply on that video. I've never been able to get samples or even a response about it since. And I know a lot of those bigger companies now work very differently. They work with a lot of different PR firms, things like that. So there's probably not even necessarily a direct person at AMD who really even wants to handle sample requests. But that's probably my biggest failure, was that was a situation where I got handed an opportunity and I truly was not ready whatsoever for that opportunity. And that's the big thing with growing channels whenever they say they wish they could just get a huge shout out with thousands upon thousands of subscribers or a big company deal. You are not ready. Those things usually come when you are ready, when you are just starting out or young, or frankly when you have the thoughts of wishing that would happen. You are not at a point where you're ready to handle that. And the same thing goes for every channel. You get too many subs too quickly when you have no clue what you're doing, it goes very south very poorly. As far as my biggest success goes, I would have to say it's my OBS Masterclass, as salesman-y as that sounds. I took what was me hating my job with my MCN at the early 2017 and late 2016, and I started streaming full-time for a little bit because I just stopped working for them for a bit and I finally quit. And I had this huge extra gap of time that I was spending stressing out over work. That suddenly I felt more free. I could do anything. I didn't have content lined up to really fill those gaps yet. And so I streamed full time, got up to affiliate status, didn't make any money from it. But I was doing 8-hour days and stuff. And I was like, I need to revamp my OBS multi-platform, as it was called, series from 2015, because there were a lot of mistakes in it. I said the entire time megabytes per second or whatever instead of bits. It wasn't that I didn't know which was which. I literally just said the wrong thing every time. I just had it consistently switched. It was outdated. They changed what the software was called. So I was like, I should change it. And I started scripting because what I was doing for my MCN was designing an educational course for YouTube, which I may still release at some point. I just need to update it. Things change, yada yada. It's probably not worth it. But that was what I really got into at that job and kind of enjoyed, was designing this course. And I was like, I should do that for OBS. And it took all year to produce, but it turned out amazing in my opinion. I sold good sponsored spots on it, and it has led to other opportunities, and it's a good piece that I can still show off. And the OBS support Discord, they still link it as a relevant guide. I think it turned out pretty well. So that's probably my biggest success, I would have to say. And hopefully I can more quickly, before this year's over, turn around a Streamlabs OBS core mini course and a OBS for Mac mini course. And at some point I want to do an OBS for Linux mini course. I haven't even started on those other than outlining. I haven't actually scripted or anything. I want to do a different approach. My OBS masterclass was scripted ahead of time, then spoken on camera, and then got the screen capture, which for the most part made it more polished, but sometimes it's hard to match up actions to what I'm saying when I'm not doing it real time, so I want to try to have a more real-time format, but still have the production quality. Haven't figured out the logistics of that yet. Did you ever think of getting 1 or 2 ultra-wide monitors? I've looked at ultra-wide monitors a lot. I've always laughed at the concept, and the further I look into them, the more I laugh at the concept. For media consumption, it kind of makes sense, except for the fact that easily half to 75% of the content you watch is still going to be 16:9, be it on YouTube, TV shows, pretty much anything. Only movies are in scope 2.35:1 or whatever. It's not even actually 21:9. Only movies are in the wider aspect ratios, and some of those are sticking to 16:9. Like there was Dunkirk that did the multi-aspect ratio nonsense. I think one of the Batman movies supposedly did. One of the Transformers did. At first I thought the Transformers one, like, it was unfinished and it was hilarious. I didn't actually see the movie, I just heard that it changed aspect ratios, but then that became a thing for the Dunkirk movie. And so that's going to be really difficult to watch on a 21:9 screen. So for content consumption, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. For desktop use, my focus is on more screen real estate, which means having more pixels per inch on the screen. And that doesn't work out for ultra-wides. It sounds really cool if you're used to lower end monitors and you're sold this concept of, oh, it's twice as wide as a normal monitor. It's 1.5 times as wide as a normal monitor. It's great, except it's still lower resolution than just the 4K panels I use 2 4K panels on my main editing workstation. One is a DCI 4K monitor, which is 4096 by 2160, and then the other is a standard UHD 4K monitor, which is 3840 by 2160. There are no 2160 high ultrawides. There's now a 3840 by 1080 ultrawide, which is just two 1080p monitors stuck side by side, but there's nothing that keeps there's no ultrawide that adds to 4K resolution, only cuts away. Like, I think there's now a 2560, no, there's 16 by 10 at 2560 by 1600. And then there was a 3840 by 1600, I want to say, is the newest, like, high res one. And that's still chopping off for 560 pixels off of a 4K screen. Like, there's no advantage there. There's no gained productivity. There's no gained screen space. There's no gained window management. It's literally slicing off vertical height from a 4K monitor. And I am someone who prefers more vertical height. 3x2 displays on those Surface Books is amazing. 16 by 10 displays or 8 by 5 displays for productivity, 1440 by 900, 1680 by 1050 or whatever, the 2560 by 1600. I want more 4K, 5K resolution spec 16 by 10 screens because that extra vertical height is amazing for productivity. Wideness is not great for productivity. The bow tie affects graphics work and timelines and things like that. 16 by 10, way to go. Ultrawides, not in the books for me, especially with how much larger they are. I already have big enough monitors already. How did I get the name Epos Vox? Easy. So, I was trying to make a new name because my last handle for my original gaming channel was some leet speak garbage that we'll never speak of again. And I was trying to come up with one, and one of my buddies at the time, Jake, came up with the name. Or he wanted something playing off of Epos, or off of Epic Voice, because that's what I was known for at the time. Not necessarily conveyed through this microphone, but I was known for my deeper voice on YouTube and things like that. And some people called me like the golden voice, that was a reference at the time to the homeless guy that got famous for doing radio stuff, things like that. And he wound up finding out that the Latin translation is Vox Epos, which is what he suggested. Except usernames and handles to me are a little bit more catchy when it's 2 syllables, 1 syllable. So I flipped the Latin of Vox Epos to Epos Vox. And it's actually Epos is probably closer to the actual Latin, not that anyone speaks it, but that's how I got the name. And it's stuck with me since, and most people can't pronounce it still, and it's probably not the best choice and doesn't convey anything about tech, but I've had it for this long. It's my brand. I'm keeping it for now. How do you find topics for your videos? How long does it take to make one? I kind of touched on this earlier. I find topics by you guys asking questions, people asking questions about things they need help with tech. If there's ever a concept I mention in a video, like that requires more learning about, I want to make sure I have additional videos that explain that. So if you don't know what something is in a video, search my channel and you probably have a response. Now, I need to fill that in more, but that is, I want to show people how to do things. There's always new software updates. There's new tools I want to show off. There's new hardware to show off. There's new, I never run out of ideas. And in terms of how long it takes to make a video, it could take anywhere from a couple hours, like this one. Like this one will have taken like 45 minutes or so to actually shoot in total, and then an hour or so to edit together with some super basic B-roll, but then some complicated ones can take days and days of non-stop work, and then some I record, put off for 6 months, edit a little bit, put off for 6 months, and then finish. And then some I have filmed in like 2015 that I've still never edited, and they may go live or they may just be forgotten in the archives. What was your first computer? I don't know the first one that I used. It would have been Windows 3.1. I played a game called Balloons on an old computer that my parents had that I never remember actually seeing. They had a printer that had ribbon ink, ribbon toner, whatever it was at the time, and I remember I always get told the story that when I was like only a couple years old or a few months old, I pulled the ribbon ink or toner or whatever out of the printer, wrapped it around myself, covering myself in the ink, and then got it all over the furniture and carpet. And my first video game was a game called Balloons for DOS or Windows 3.1 when I was 9 months old, so that was cool. But in terms of the first computer I actually owned, it was the Windows 95 Hot Wheels computer. It was awesome, had an awesome CRT that I later stupidly checkerboarded the front of using Sharpie and whiteout, and eventually got rid of, unfortunately. But we upgraded it to a 4 GB hard drive, which was amazing at the time. Came with a cool racing wheel and pedals. I want to get another unit of that at some point. I know they're hard to find, but it was an awesome little computer until it died. But those were some good times. The Hot Wheels games are fun. I still have most of my copies of those. I want to go back to them at some point. How often do you wash your hair? I'm asking for a friend. Daily most of the time. Not really sure I understand the question. What got you into editing and recording YouTube videos? Friends? Curiosity? Curiosity. I had watched some YouTubers at the time, CNanners making Call of Duty 4 and World at War videos. Hutch made Call of Duty 4 videos. And then I started getting into it, bought my first capture card in 2010, I believe. And by that point, I had seen gameplay, I believe, of Modern Warfare 2. What's his name? Sandy Ravage or Randy Savage, whichever. Sandy Ravage got a copy early and was doing gameplays of it and things like that. They got me really interested in making gaming videos. I'd always, saved little clips if I could in games. Always wanted to make little highlight montage things. That got me into that, and then eventually I transitioned into tech. Where are you from? Why do you make videos? Same line, already answered it. I'm from Kentucky. There's nothing around here in terms of YouTube or media or tech, so awful place to be for this job, but I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. This thing keeps scrolling on its own. If you could instantly turn pro at one sport, what would it be? Professional video editing. I wouldn't want the commitment or the requirements of being professional at a sport, so genuinely I don't want none. Is there a way to record a full 120 FPS with NVENC or X264 smoothly? Yeah. You open up OBS, you set it to fractional frame rate mode, 120/1, and you have good hardware, and use NVENC, and it works. Easy peasy. How many technical issues do you have when making a video? Some of them go flawlessly, and then some of them, like my Live Gamer 4K review from last Monday, it took hours upon hours of Adobe's stupid GPU render error that has virtually no fix, stopping the render every few minutes and me having to start it over and keep it going, and it took hours. I finished it. I already took forever to make it. I finished it at 6 p.m. on Monday. It took me until 10 p.m. to actually start uploading it, and then YouTube decided to drag its feet processing it, and I barely got it posted before midnight. It was bad. In terms of other technical issues, I usually don't have a ton. My cameras and audio equipment usually works all right. I'm at the point where my setup is fairly competent. Sometimes videos will glitch out or the software will crash, but overall, things run pretty smoothly in that regard. In terms of the actual creation, Windows 10 1803 not installing on a build I'm trying to benchmark, those can be pretty derailing. What made you choose Plex over Kodi or anything else? Well, at the time that I started with Plex, Kodi was basically like an XBMC front end. It was just a front end for stuff. It didn't have a whole lot of functionality built into it. And I just wanted something that organized my media files and let me stream them to different rigs and play on my Xbox. And that's what Plex did. And so I've just stuck with it. No reason to switch. And now full disclosure, I'm sponsored by them for content. So, yeah. I think that's it. Oh, legit that thumbnail, you look like a clone of me a few years back, referring to the picture of the community tab where I was asking for questions. I guess. Brother? What do you think about gaming phones, and what phone do you use as your daily driver? The one I'm currently using as my daily driver right here is the Huawei Mate 10 Pro, which I did a gaming on the Huawei Mate 10 Pro video. It was sent for review. I may have to send it back at some point, but that's what I'm using right now because I can use the USB-C out to record video, whereas my previous daily driver is my Samsung Galaxy Note 5, which is actually from my contract with my parents' family plan with AT&T. It does not have any actual video output capabilities whatsoever, and at this point the battery life is pretty crap. Battery life currently on the Mate 10 Pro is fantastic, so sticking with that. I don't get a whole lot of phones through here because I don't cover a whole lot of mobile topics. Because of things like I'm about to say, what do I think about gaming phones? I think they're pretty stupid, but for certain people, they're probably great. because some people just want to be able to play games while they're on the bus or while they're, at a friend's house or at the doctor's office or whatever. Like, they just have specific circumstances, and that's all they really need for games, and that's fine. Mobile gaming is getting to a better point, even though the whole hand walk tutorial, push notifications, advertisements, and loot boxes honestly ruin the experience of games I would genuinely pay to play. In terms of a dedicated gaming phone, for me, I don't see any point. I don't want a phone that's bigger and hotter and worse battery life just to play games every once in a while. I'd rather just play what games I can play on the phone that I have. Never really ran into issues with that. I've been playing the crap out of Headball 2, which is just a stupid little soccer game. Pokemon Quest, which is not Pokemon Go. I'm not a huge fan of that, but we've started it up again. Those are the only. Tekken on mobile's pretty good. And then there's a new Dragon Ball Legends I want to play. I haven't tried it out yet. But I think a lot of the smartphone trends are really stupid, and people who get up in arms over something like a notch when you can just buy a phone with a actual bezel. I'd rather have front-facing speakers than an all-glass display or a notch. So that's just me. And then, we got two more. If you clean a vacuum cleaner, I don't know, I gotta read this right. If you clean a vacuum cleaner, are you the vacuum cleaner? And lastly, how many houses have you changed? I've posted about moving a few times because we've moved apartments 3 times now. So I've lived in 2 houses with my parents. We moved when I was about 7 or 8-ish, and then they had 1 house, and then I moved out of that house into an apartment. Then we upgraded apartments. Then our last apartment had flooding damage, and we were forced to move and upgrade again. So this is now my 3rd apartment. More apartments than houses. Hopefully the next one will be an actual house instead of an apartment, but we'll see. So that's all the Q&A questions. That's all the Q's for the A's for this episode. First episode now, I guess. I'll try to do this monthly, although it took me a month to even get to this round of questions. So we'll see, but I do want to do it more often. If you do have more questions you would like to ask, join our Discord server at eplusvox.com/discord. There is a special chat for that. That is where I'm going to prioritize getting questions from, unless there's just something fantastic in the comments or I'm low on questions for the day. Go check that out, and we have a great community there talking about tech, gaming, lots of different stuff. You can ask me questions if I'm around, things like that. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe for more awesome tech content and things like that, and I'll see you next time.